Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So if you're new here, my name is Mahsa, and today we are going to be talking about a book series that I absolutely love, and that is the Eve of Martin books, but more specifically we're talking about The Eve Illusion, which is the second book in the series. So I think I'm just going to start with doing like a mini recap of the first book and then get into what I thought of the second book. Now I have put spoilers in the title. I am going to try and keep this as spoiler free as I possibly can, but just in case some people haven't read the first book or still haven't read the second book, I just thought I'd put it in there just in case I do accidentally end up giving something away while I'm chatting about it. So let's get into it. So the first book came out in 2018, I believe. The books are written by Giovanna and Tom Fletcher. Giovanna is a writer herself, and Tom Fletcher was from McFly and has written loads of children's books also. I love the premise of this book. The first book is about a girl called Eve. Now, she is the first girl born in 50 years of no girls being born. So she's kind of seen as the savior of the human race, and she's got a lot of pressure to deal with. And the book is about her turning 16 years old and basically having to start thinking about finding a potential mate / life partner sort of thing and starting the process of repopulating the earth. It sounds like a lot, and it kind of is, so Eve's having a hard time with it. That's kind of the premise of the story. It's set in sort of like a future dystopian kind of scenario in my mind. I would imagine that it's like 50 years in the future, and that's when Eve's born, but some people do think that it's further in the future, and there's also like hints of like climate change and humans start to abuse the Earth's power and stuff like that when they think that they've got no life to live for, I guess. So the whole series is actually set in London, but obviously with it being like future dystopian London, you kind of get the imagery of like London as a city. It's painted really well, like the world building in this series is amazing, and you kind of see it all, but you also like are getting things described to you that you might be very familiar with as like landmarks throughout London, but it's all in a dystopian way, which I really enjoy. I really enjoy that it's set in London. Obviously, I'm not from London, but it's somewhere that I'm familiar with, so I get the references that are in the book. In my mind, it's written very much like a film. So you get the two different perspectives of Eve, who is the girl, and a young boy called Bram. So you get the different perspectives of these two young characters and what they see and what they're sort of figuring out separately, and then see them come together. And I love it. It's written properly like a film, and I just loved it. So as I was reading it, I was seeing it all happen like in my mind. I could see how the film would look. Obviously, in my mind, I would be playing Eve because I love her and I think she's such an amazing character. So, you know, Giovanna Fletcher and Tom Fletcher, if you're making the film, like, hit me up. I will audition for the part. Like, I love this character so much. So much so that when I told a friend of mine to read the book, I was like, you have to imagine me as Eve. And obviously she read it, she loved the book, and in her mind she is Holly. So, you know, if you need to cast Eve and Holly, then I'm right there. So I've gone through a big not reading spell, and I loved this first book so much. I just could not put it down, and I read it so quickly, and I just thought it was amazing. It made me feel emotions. It's got lots of different plot twists that come in that you just don't see coming. It made me cry, and I was just like, what is happening? So I haven't cried at a book in a very, very long time, but it did make me cry. It is considered a YA book, but I loved it, and I think some of the themes that the book has are probably a little bit too adult for a YA book. There is themes of women not having control of their bodies because everyone, scientists and the government and people need to like think about repopulating the earth, so they're like experimenting on women, so they kind of lose ownership of their bodies a little bit. And obviously it kind of shows like the extent people are willing to go for the sake of saving the human race and kind of disregarding the people that are currently around and living their lives. So it's really interesting to kind of see the psyche of what people are willing to do and what people are willing to go through if they think that the human race is about to die out. So it's really quite dark in that sense. I think it's probably a little bit too adult to be a YA book. But then again, what do I know? So the first book ends on a cliffhanger because we already know that it's going to be a trilogy, and the second book picks up where the first book left. Now, second book, The Eve Illusion. Also, look how good this is. I got it signed. I got a signed copy because I was just nerding out about this book so much. The second book is actually written with a third perspective, which completely makes sense for the story. So we're getting all the information that we wouldn't be getting from the other two characters. So it is written from Eve's perspective and Bram's perspective, as is the first one. And then we get Michael, who pops along, and we get his perspective as well. Now, reading this book, I had completely forgotten who Michael was. So it took my brain just a little hot minute to try and figure out, like, who is Michael and why are we getting his perspective? So once I figured that out, I was like, oh yeah, it actually makes loads of sense. So in my mind, I was like, they're making like progress, they're moving forward, and everything was going well, they've escaped, and it was all great. Then all the events of the second book, I was just sat reading it, and I didn't think it would be possible, but it got so much darker. I cannot believe how dark the second book is. Like, themes of torture are there throughout the entire book. It's very torture heavy, and it's not like, I don't know, can you say it's like light torture? It's not light torture at all. It's like torture head on, fully happening. And it was much darker than I anticipated. So I was reading the book and my heart was pounding, and like my anxiety was through the roof reading this book, trying to see what was happening and what everyone was up to. So yeah, so it was just really dark. I know that everyone is really split about this book. So I've seen loads of people that are saying it's overhyped and the writing isn't very good, and others who absolutely love the series, or like myself. But I just found it really easy to read. So I really actually enjoyed it for that reason. I'm not like a book expert, so I don't know how well things are written or whatever. I just know that me, as a reader, I really enjoyed reading the books. I'm in love with the characters. I totally love the storyline and the plot, especially in the second book. Things start to heat up a little bit, which I totally love and think it's great. The second book also has loads of different plot twists in it. There is a couple of bits in it that happen and I was just like, oh my god, are they for real? What is going on? How did we not know this? But to sort of prepare for this video, I've gone back and I've listened to the audiobook of Eve of Man, which is obviously the first book. If you've got time after you've read the second book, go back and read the first book, because as you're reading it, you're like, oh, they sort of like hinted at this by saying this bit. So it all kind of makes sense, which I really love. I think in the movies, because I'm like, they have to turn this into a movie. Like, these books would be so good as a movie series. I don't know if that sort of like dystopian futuristic movie thing is like in the past now, with like Maze Runner and Divergent and Hunger Games, which all have similar vibes. But I would love for this to become a movie because I think it would look so good and everything would be explained so much more. Overall, I love this series so much. I don't know how exactly I'm gonna have to wait a year for the next book to come out, but I guess I'm gonna have to. So for the rest of the whole lockdown situation, I've got a couple of more books that I'm really looking forward to reading. I've got Lemons, 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 Lemons by Sam Steiner. I've got Consent by Nina Rain, which I'm excited to read. And I've got, of course, The Vagina Monologues. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but all plays. So I'm currently on the lookout for some really good monologues that I can just have for when auditions roll around after everything's like going back to normal. So I'm going to be reading a few more plays than I usually would. Let me know in the comments below if you're interested in knowing my thoughts on these plays, or if you'd be interested in me doing a list of useful monologues that I came across in any of these. And let me know in the comments below if you've read the Eve of Man series and what did you think of it? Are you one of those people who love it like I am, or are you one of those people who just aren't that keen on it? Thank you guys so much for watching the video today. I know it might have been a little bit on the ramblier side, but thanks for sticking with it. If you liked this video or you like any of my other videos, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!